Ma'am, we are live.
I'll start now.
Yes, ma'am, we are live. Yes, ma'am, we are live on YouTube also.
Okay, okay. Thank you, thank you. So just let me start my presentation. My topic you'll be seeing just now. Can you see the presentation? It is not yet, right? Is it visible?
Yes, ma'am, it is visible. You can just press the F5 and make it full screen. Then it will be more clear.
Where is it? I can't see. I don't know why. One moment, just one moment. Fine now?
Yes, ma'am.
Rituals?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Perfect.
So, okay. Thank you. So this is my topic. I would prefer that my students who are present today are also interact with me, because this is not like everyday's topic. It's a detective novel, and I feel that the students do read detective novel. Do you? First, let me introduce myself. I am Shoumi Shen Mitra from Mahadevananda College, Department of English. So this is, and I start with my presentation, a peep into the lives of the major and minor characters in the murder of Roger Ackroyd. I would like my students, anybody of you, to unmute and tell me, has anybody of you read Agatha Christie before? Any of you can just share if anybody of you have read Agatha Christie, or have you heard her name, Agatha Christie?
No, ma'am.
You haven't heard of Agatha Christie? Have
No,
you
ma'am.
read detective stories?
Heard of a name but haven't read yet.
Okay, you've heard of her name, but you haven't read yet. Okay. Let me give you a little bit of introduction of Agatha Christie. I hope this will be interesting to you, because, during my teenage age, Agatha Christie was a big craze. So I don't know how much it will appeal to you all, because you are reading at different types of books. But I do hope that she appeals to you and the novel also appeals to you. Trying my best. Agatha Christie. Just a little bit of, see her picture. She looks very dignified to me. Born 15 September. These are the details you will be getting in any Wikipedia. 66 detective novels, 14 short story collections. She has two fictional detectives. That is important. Like when you are reading Sharodindu, or you are reading maybe when you are reading Satyajit Ray, you have one detective. That is, in Satyajit Ray, you have Feluda, and in Sharodindu, you have Bomkesh. But in this Agatha Christie, she has two detectives. In some stories, it is Hercule Poirot. In some story, it is Miss Marple. Miss Marple is a fictional character, obviously, in her crime novels. She lives in the village of St. Mary Mead, and she's an amateur. You know what is an amateur? There are two types of detectives. One is an amateur, another is a professional. An amateur detective doesn't charge any money for solving cases, and a professional detective is charging money for that. Hercule Poirot is a professional detective, and Miss Marple is an amateur detective. Okay. Just let me tell you a little bit of Agatha Christie before I carry on with Jane Marple. Agatha Christie's first book, you must remember these details because, you know, in later life, when you are speaking to other people or you're sharing your views on detective stories, you can at least remember the first book which Agatha Christie had written. The name of the book is The Mysterious Affair at Styles. It was written during 1920 and it made her a famous detective. Christie's name was Agatha Mary Clarissa Miller, and she was born in Torquay, which is in the southwest part of England. She was youngest of the three siblings, and you know, her mother was her inspiration. Her mother always inspired her daughter to write, and in 1914, when she wed Colonel Archibald Christie, see the name now, how the Christie name is coming. She's getting married to Colonel Archibald Christie, a Royal Flying Corps pilot. And then Agatha Christie was not a writer beforehand, she was a nurse. These are some of the details that people do not know, that she started her nursing during World War I. When during the First World War, she wrote her first book, The Mysterious Affair at Style, where she focused on the murder of a rich heiress. And it became so popular because that time she introduced the first important detective. Is a very different detective, not Sherlock Holmes. He's a very different kind of detective, and why is he different? I will get to that later. First, he was a Belgian detective whose name was Hercule Poirot. Now, this is the introduction of Hercule Poirot in Mysterious Affair at Style. How did Jane Marple, let me introduce Jane Marple. In 1926, Christie released the book which you are going to deal with, The Murder of Roger Ackroyd. And it became a genre classic, and it was the author's all-time favorite. It also made her very popular. But that year was also a very bad year for her. The year of publication, when she was writing Roger Ackroyd, she got to know that her husband was having a relationship with another woman. She was so traumatized that she disappeared from the literature scene, and later she was discovered in a hotel which was known as Harrogate. After some time, it took Christie to recover from the mental blow she had received from her husband, and she divorced Archibald in 1928. In 1930, she again married, and this time to an archaeological professor whose name was Max Mallowan. Max Mallowan. This was a happy marriage, and with that, she published her book, Murder at the Vicarage. Murder at the Vicarage, where she introduced another detective, Miss Jane Marple. So we are getting two things now. Number one, which is of importance to you, her first publication, The Mysterious Affair at Styles, where she introduces the Belgian detective Hercule Poirot. Then after her second marriage, she writes another book, Murder at the Vicarage, where she introduces her second detective, a lady, Miss Jane Marple. Hope I'm clear to you. Next, I go on to Miss Jane Marple. Miss Jane Marple, her original name is she's known as Miss Marple, but her full name is Miss Jane Marple. But in the books, when you're going to read the books, she is referred to as Miss Marple. She has 15 detective novels. Means Miss Marple has appeared in 15 detective novels. Let me go into some of her important books: Sleeping Murder, The Body in the Library, A Caribbean Mystery, A Murder is Announced, A Murder in the Vicarage, A Pocket Full of Rye, At Bertram's Hotel. Christie introduced Miss Marple as a lady who lives in a snug English village called St. Mary Mead. St. Mary Mead, and you know what is her special distinction of problem solving? She's very unsentimental when she's dealing with the problems. Jane Marple tells us about her encounter with different Marple. She got it from an idea from her mother, from her grandmother. From her grandmother, she got the idea of an old lady who has all the, you can say, intelligence, and who can solve all kind of domestic problems. I will introduce some of the qualities of Jane Marple, because you know you can compare her with one person you have seen in the film, and I will ask you about that. She appears as a spinster. She's a spinster. She has an unusual background. Her intelligence is unusual. Means you cannot match it with she does not have any professional training in criminology, or she hasn't taken any kind of training in police force. You know, her hobbies are very domestic hobbies: gardening, knitting, gossiping, one of the qualities that we all like. She lives in a small village where she meets very simple people. She mixes with people. She understands human nature. She understands human nature means she understands goodness, she understands wickedness. And Miss Jane Marple is very proud of her house, because in her house she has got a lot of housemaids, and many of them come from orphanages. And all her knowledge and idea of life comes from these housemaids. They try to enlighten her with different facts of life, and she uses her intelligence to go deep into the psyche of people and solve the problems in people's life. Okay, can you tell me any such character you have come across when you have seen a film? Any film, it does not have to be an English film, it can be a Hindi film, it can be a Bengali film. Just share any kind of a lady, a very domestic lady who has that intelligence of a detective and solves problem. I don't know if you see movies. Do you see movies? Yes? You can share. I will not pounce on you. It can be a wrong answer, but I am there to just have a friendly conversation with you. Tell me, do you see movies or not?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. Can you tell me any movie that you have seen where you come across a lady who solves problems?
Ma'am, Mitin Mashi.
Huh?
Mitin Mashi.
Acha, Mitin Mashi. Very good. Any other? তোমরা শুভ মহরত দেখেছো ঋতুপর্ণ সেনগুপ্ত? বলে একটা সিনেমা হয়েছিল ঋতুপর্ণ সেনগুপ্তর, সরি ঋতুপর্ণ ঘোষ, আই এম ভেরি সরি, ঋতুপর্ণ ঘোষ। সেখানে হ্যাভ ইউ সিন রাখি গুলজার?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Remember রাখি গুলজার? রাখি গুলজারের ক্যারেক্টারটা তোমার মনে আছে? She is aunt, পিসি।
Yes, ma'am.
That's unusual. She's also knitting. All the time she's knitting. She's talking about cats and she's solving problems. Yet she's intelligent enough. Or niece কার সঙ্গে meet করছে, what kind of people she are meeting, who she's having an affair with, who can be the murderer, how she's luring Shormila Tagore, who is the real murderer, into her house. So Jane Marple, actually I will say Rituparna Ghosh modeled Rakhi Gulzar or the Pishi character upon Miss Jane Marple. আমি এটা দেখে আমার প্রচন্ড মনে হয়েছে জেন মার্পল থেকে নেওয়া. So it is very interesting when you see even in your house, দেখবে বাড়িতে কেউ না কেউ আছে, there are people in your house who has this kind of a very detective kind of an idea, যে আগে থেকে বলে দেবে, ভুলভাল আইডিয়া নয় যে সবকিছুর মধ্যে highly suspicious ব্যাপার খুঁজে পাচ্ছে, not that type, a type who has a basic intelligence which is, you can say, above others, that kind. Okay, I will not waste time. Let me go to the next part. Hercule Poirot, who is our, you can center of attraction today. This is the man. See his mustache. Just see the mustache of Hercule Poirot. One of the most interesting part of his appearance. These are the names of the books. I'm going very fast. His first book, Mysterious Affair at Styles. This is one of the very interesting books. You know, lots of films have been made on Hercule Poirot. Murder on the Orient Express, Peril at End House, The ABC Murders, The Mystery of the Blue Train, The Lord Edgware Dies, Murder on the Links, The Big Four, Hercule Poirot's Christmas, and obviously the murder of Roger Ackroyd. Now, regarding this slide, one thing I just want to tell you, when you're reading Hercule Poirot, remember 6 basic things. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 basic things. First, you can read any book in any order except these books which I'm going to mention. You may listen or you can see the YouTube link later. Lord Edgware Dies should be read before after the funeral because these are sequels. 5 Little Pigs should be read before Elephants Can Remember. Cat Among the Pigeons should be read before Halloween's Party. Mrs. McGinty's Dead should be read before Halloween's Party and Elephants Can Remember. Murder on the Orient Express should be read before Murder in Mesopotamia. And 3-act tragedy should be read before Hercule Poirot's Christmas. 6 things you have to remember when you are going to read Hercule Poirot later. All the books you can read in any order, but these books, unless you read in the proper order, you won't be able to understand the real meaning of the story because these are sequels. Next part, I'm coming to his characteristics. This is written already out there. One thing, he's very short. Oh, you see Feluda? Oh my God, Feluda, you know, superhuman qualities you have. He's tall, he's doing his gym, he's extremely civilized, he's extremely balanced, he's extremely disciplined what he does. Hercule Poirot is very different from Feluda. He's short, he's got hair, very less hair, but whatever hair he's got, he uses a type of an oil that is called a brilliantine hair because he uses oil. He has a mustache, he's a bachelor. This is one part of Agatha Christie. I don't know why she prefers bachelor and spinsters, but that is what. And one characteristics of Hercule Poirot always says, I'm going to use my gray cells. Gray cells indicate brain. I'm going to use my gray cells. He's a Belgian officer. And Christie based his mannerism on World War I. This part I would like to talk about. During First World War, Poirot had left Belgium as a refugee. He had left Belgium and to settle down in England. And there he comes across his lifelong friend, Captain Arthur Hastings. Captain Arthur Hastings is like Feluda has Topshe, Bomkesh has Ajit. This kind of a, you can say, friendship. He has an accomplice who is actually writing the story. you have these accomplices who are writing the story and giving it to the readers, and they are giving their own viewpoints. Now, Agatha Christie used to prefer Hercule Poirot more than Jane Marple. In Christie's first novel, he was introduced as a quaint, dandified little man. He enters a post office, he bumps into a man who becomes his friend, Arthur Hastings, and this Arthur Hastings helps him to solve all kind of mysteries. In an autobiography, Christie had written that she wanted to compete with Sherlock Holmes. Sherlock Holmes at that time had become very popular, so she thought that I will create a character which will be little out of ordinary. First, she thought whether it's going to be a schoolboy sleuth like those famous five found outers, Enid Blyton we had, or maybe a scientist like Professor Shonku you have in Satyajit Ray. But he decided these type of things will not be very successful. So what he chose was a Belgian refugee. And this kind of Belgian refugee she used to see when she used to live in Torquay with her mother. Because that time the First World War was going, there was the German invasion, and the refugees used to come and settle down. And she had an idea, she felt that these refugees never felt at ease when they are coming to a different country. You leave your country, you are settled down in a different country. They were very suspicious. Even, Poirot has this kind of a suspicious nature. And they were more into gardening, and they never wanted to go to the tea parties and mix with people. They always wanted to be left alone. And if we compare Sherlock Holmes with Poirot says, I'm using my grey cells, and Sherlock Holmes uses one word, elementary, my dear Watson. This is one of his famous line, elementary, my dear Watson, and Poirot is always saying, I'm using my grey cells. Sherlock Holmes smokes a pipe. He's a bit eccentric. Poirot is somewhat eccentric, but not to that extent of Sherlock Holmes. Now let us compare two accomplices, Hastings and Watson. Hastings, which is Hercule Poirot's accomplice and friend, both Watson and Hastings, you can say, are companion chronicler. Both narrate in the first person. Both have a military background. Both have been injured in war. Both of them assist their detective friends in the field work. Both are incapable of concealing everything. They express everything. Both are exceedingly vulnerable to female beauty. While both see their more shrewd friends observe, neither of them, they cannot read between the lines. Hercule Poirot, Sherlock Holmes, they have extraordinary intelligence. They can read between the lines. But Hastings and Watson cannot read between the lines. Both are very imaginative. Both are mocked by their friends. Both are annoyed by their detective friends because for keeping them in the dark. Even Feluda, you will be seeing, keeps everybody in the dark. In the prime time, he tells Topshe, I want to be alone. This is one of the signature stamp of the detectives. When they want to solve something, they don't want any of their friends to interfere in them. So Hastings, Watson, Topshe or Ajit, they have the same characteristics where during the main time, they are kept alone and they are kept in the dark. Next slide. My main story, Murder of Roger Ackroyd. Listen carefully because this is in your examination, this is in your syllabus. Your novel, it may be a little confusing. Do not get confused. If you have any problem, I have a question answer session. I can also go on in details if I have that time. But let me tell you, the novel opens with a death. Death of whom? Mrs. Ferrars. Who is Mrs. Ferrars? Let me introduce her. Mrs. Ferrars does not appear in the novel as a living person. When the novel has opened, it is Dr. Shepherd. Here is a difference. Murder of Roger Ackroyd is very different from other novels of Agatha Christie that is written on Hercule Poirot. Because in most of the novels, the writer is Hastings. But in this novel, the writer is Dr. Shepard. It is not Hastings. This is one big difference. Hastings was the writer in other novels, but Dr. Shepard is the writer in this novel. He introduces us to a character whose name is Mrs. Ferrars. It opens with her death. She has committed suicide. There's a presumption. And there's a presumption. Why? Because she was suffering from guilt conscience. Why this guilt conscience? Because just before that, there has been another murder. And that has been of Ashley Ferrars. Ashley Ferrars is her husband. She has killed her husband. Ashley Ferrars poisoned her husband. The reason that people are giving is because Ashley Ferrars was an alcoholic. He used to abuse his wife, and she was a rich lady, but she wanted a respite. And in order to get a respite, she has two things to do. One, indulge in an illicit affair. Who is she indulging in an illicit affair? With Roger Ackroyd, who is already married. Next recourse she takes is to poison. Poison whom? Her husband, in order to get rid of her, you can say, unbearable life. When she does that time somebody gets to know of it and starts blackmailing her. Mental turmoil, guilt, strain forced her into suicide. She could not take so much of strain and she committed suicide. Let's come to Mr. Roger Ackroyd. Who is Mr. Roger Ackroyd? He's a very successful businessman into the wagon business. He lives, the place where he lives is Fernley Place, and the village where he lives is King's Abbot. Fernley Place is the village, Fernley Place is his residence, King's Abbot is the village. He's a successful businessman. So in society he is very liked, though he appears to be very stubborn, and to some people, his relatives obviously regarding as a miser, because they don't feel that they get the share of money they deserve from Mr. Roger Ackroyd. Mr. Roger Ackroyd's first wife's name was Patton. She died of dipsomania. Dipsomania means alcoholism. This wife, after she died with a son, Ralph Patton. Ralph Patton is the stepson of Roger Ackroyd. Roger Ackroyd does not have good terms because Ralph Patton also indulges in disreputable kind of activities, and he spends money. He's a spendthrift. He cannot keep money, and he's always getting into some problem with his stepfather. Obviously, you know Mrs. Ferrars is having a relationship with Roger Ackroyd. That means Roger Ackroyd is also having a relationship with Mrs. Ferrars. Mrs. Ferrars leaves a letter to Ackroyd before she dies, naming her blackmailer, and tells Roger that even if I die, you have to take revenge. His niece, that time, before Roger can even read out the name, Roger Ackroyd is killed. Typical detective story where Roger Ackroyd is killed because he will not name the blackmailer, as the blackmailer himself has killed Roger Ackroyd before his name can be revealed. Who calls Hercule Poirot to investigate the case? Flora Ackroyd, the niece of Roger Ackroyd, calls Hercule Poirot to investigate the case. This is a television adaptation. This does not have any significance. I wanted to show you how Mrs. Ferrars would have looked like. This is a television series which appeared in 2000. That time, Rosalind Bailey, one of the British actress, she played Mrs. Ferrars, and Malcolm Terrace played Roger Ackroyd. These are the two pictures. Middle-aged, you can understand, both are middle-aged. And you see the look of Roger Ackroyd, he looks very successful. And he's got a cynical look in his face. And Mrs. Ferrars looks very perplexed. Next slide. Dr. Shepard. I should not have been telling you the name of the culprit, but I have to because I have to go through this PPT. Dr. Shepard is the narrator. What is his profession? He is a physician. He's a bachelor. Again, a bachelor. See, again, this is you can say this affinity of writing about bachelors with Christie has. She has a very inquisitive sister, Caroline Shepherd. Caroline Shepherd is like those gossip mongers, always looking out for some gossip or the other. Dr. Shepherd is very likable. You'll see that the culprits are very liked by people. Not like Mohanlal Meghraj of Satyajit Ray, of Feluda. Mohanlal Meghraj is never liked. But Dr. Shepherd is liked by everybody because he's trustworthy, reliable. But according to people, like even his sister says, he's a desperate man. Later, Christie projects him as a desperate man because he's the one who has been blackmailing Mrs. Ferrars, and Mrs. Ferrars has been forced to has forced to end her life. And when Mrs. Ferrar writes down the name of Dr. Shepherd and gives the letter to Roger Ackroyd, before he can even read the name, maybe he has read the name, but before he can reveal the name, he is killed by stabbing. Dr. Shepherd stabs him with a Tunisian dagger, which he puts on his neck. Now, see one I've seen quotation I've given. It's a very sarcastic. The English have this way of a sarcasm. Our village is like any other village. It is Cranchester. Our big town is Cranchester, 9 miles away. We have a railway station, a post office, 2 rival general stores. Able-bodied men are apt to leave the place early in life. Means this is a sarcasm that people who are fit leave this place early. They do not want to stay. But we are rich. But we are rich in unmarried ladies and retired military officers. So this is a place where all the rich people and the unmarried people and the retired people comes, and their hobbies and recreations can be summed up in one word, that is gossip. I told you, gossip is the main part. Gossip plays a main role in, even when you're reading the Greek classics, Oedipus, there is a role of the audience where the audience is gossiping that Oedipus is supposed to has got married to his own mother and killed his father. That also comes from the audience. Next slide. Caroline Shepherd. She's a very comical lady, but in spite of being very comical, she has been assisting her Hercule Poirot in a very, you can say, indirect way. She is a sister and roommate. She's extremely gossip, and where does she get all her information from? The milkman, the other tradesmen, the servants who are working in her place. When Mrs. Ferrars dies, it was in the first part of the novel. It was Caroline who reported that to her brother that Mrs. Ferrars had died, and I'm very sure she died because she has poisoned her husband and she was feeling some kind of a guilt. Well, how do you know that she has poisoned her husband, and how did she die? Caroline says she died of poisoning. Well, how did you know? We haven't got this news yet. Well, the milkman says. Well, the milkman. Where did the milkman get the news from? Well, the milkman got the news from the cook who works in Mrs. Ferrars' house. So Mrs. Ferrars' cook gives the news to the milkman. The milkman gives the news to Caroline Shepherd. And Caroline Shepherd, what the quotation itself tells you, when she goes out, it is not to gather information, but to spread it. So Caroline Shepherd is famous for not only gathering information, she can spread any kind of information like wildfire. And she doesn't regard her brother in good light. She feels Dr. Shepherd is a very old fogey. Fogey means a very old-fashioned, conservative person. And she feels delighted when Hercule Poirot comes and she can assist Hercule Poirot. She feels, now I'm getting importance. Hercule Poirot has come and I'm going to assist Hercule Poirot in his investigation. Hercule Poirot, when he comes, James Shepherd mistakes him as Poirot. The name Poirot, he mistakes the name and calls him Poirot. He comes He looks very arrogant. And you know what Dr. Shepard at first thought? He thought him to be a retired hairdresser. Imagine a private detective is mistaken to be a retired hairdresser. He convinces Dr. Shepard and he brings Dr. Shepard into his confidence, and he uses all kinds of false stories, publishing false stories in the newspapers to get out the real intention of Dr. Shepard's. He suspects Dr. Shepard's after some time. When Flora asked Shepard's to convince Shepard's neighbor was Hercule Poirot. The place where he was living was called Larches. To take on the case, then Hercule Poirot says that I will take on the case with one understanding, that I will go to the end. He treats every suspect, everybody as suspect. You know, when a detective is interrogating somebody, everybody will come into their suspicion, and they will be they will be building up their theory, hypotheses, then they will be revealing the truth. Next part is we come to the next character, which is Flora Ackroyd. Flora Ackroyd is the niece. Now, let me first give you a brief glimpse of Roger Ackroyd's family. Roger Ackroyd's wife had died. His wife, Miss Peyton, who was an alcoholic, she dies, leaves behind Ralph Peyton, who is not Roger Ackroyd's son. He is the son of an earlier marriage of Miss Peyton. And Ralph Peyton does not appear in the novel before 2 or 3 chapters are left, because he has gone into hiding. Why has he gone into hiding? That we will come later, but I'm telling you, that was also, an idea, or, a scheme that was made by Dr. Shepard, because he wanted to frame Ralph Peyton as the killer, and he wanted to be in safe light. So now coming to the household, Cecil Ackroyd is the sister-in-law. The brother had died, and Cecil Ackroyd and her daughter Flora Ackroyd comes to live with Roger Ackroyd. Flora Ackroyd is young, very fair and beautiful. She is very, you can say, disgusted by her uncle. She loves her uncle. It's not that she does not love her uncle, but her uncle, I told you before, everybody thinks that the uncle is a miser, because the uncle always is questioning what money is she using, why is she using that money. She has to give every detail. So the money, whatever she spends, she is accountable to her uncle. So that becomes very frustrating for a young lady who longs for freedom. And at that time, her uncle engages to her step cousin. Ralph Peyton is her step cousin, but the engagement takes place because Ralph Peyton is not the real son of Roger Ackroyd. So she gets engaged to Ralph Peyton. She does not love Ralph Peyton. She is just getting engaged because she feels if she gets married to Ralph Peyton, she will get lot of independence and lot of money in life. But when her uncle dies, it is not that she's actually left without any money. Her uncle had left her £20,000 in his will. Cecil Ackroyd is the typical type of lady who's always crying. All time she's breaking into sobs. She's a very hysterical kind of lady, and she's always involved in some kind of drama, and she's always saying that her Roger Ackroyd is responsible of her financial problems because he doesn't give any money to the sister-in-law, and her upper class lifestyle she cannot maintain. She all the time she's a very complaining kind of a lady. And even I think Hercule Poirot had said, oh, money, all the troubles in the world can be put down to money or the lack of it. Dr. Shepard also does not like Mrs. Ackroyd because she's very cold and unpleasant kind. Shepard feels that Cecil Ackroyd had only come to live with Roger Ackroyd in order to inherit the property from her brother-in-law. Next slide, Ralph Payton. He is the prime suspect of the murder. He wasn't arrested or questioned because he was nowhere to be seen when Roger's body was found. Where was he? He was kept in a mental clinic. And who had kept him in a mental clinic? Dr. Shepard. Dr. Shepard is a very, you can say, shrewd person. He he actually acquires the confidence of Ralph Payton and tells Ralph Payton that I am a big friend of yours and I will help you. You do not go back because you have been convicted with murder and I will save you. So where will I save you? People will try to find you. So I will take you to a mental clinic. Nobody will be suspecting you and you will be staying there. But what happens is that because of his diabolical plan, the people are suspecting Ralph Payton even more because Ralph is not coming to in the forefront when the stepfather had died. So when you are not coming to the forefront, what will happen? Obviously, people will start suspecting you. There are two reasons for Ralph not coming. One, he's scared. Next, second, though he's engaged to Flora, he has already got married to a lady whose name is Ursula Bone. Ursula Bone was a maid servant who used to work in Roger Ackroyd's house. When she finds out that Flora, obviously, Ursula gets angry that Ralph Payton is engaged to Flora because already he has married Ursula. Flora, at the end, you will be seeing she's not too much upset because she feels that if she was in the position of Ralph, she would have done the same thing because the father was a brute. The real killer we know is actually Shepard, who is actually creating this atmosphere where Flora Ackroyd is stealing money, which you will come to later. She steals money from her father's bedroom, and Ralph Payton, who had come to the summer house to meet Ursula Bone, is told by Dr. Shepard, you leave this place and stay in a place where I am letting you in, because if you come over here, you will be convicted of murder. Let me come to the other characters. Jeffrey Raymond is a young secretary. He is the very dedicated person, and he is admired because he's very straightforward in his dealings. He's admired by Shepard, Dr. Hercule Poirot. He was in debt, but he never steals money. He was in debt. Flora Ackroyd always had this habit of stealing money, and Cecil Ackroyd had this habit of breaking down into sobs. Jeffrey Raymond, who is also present there, he doesn't steal money, but in the will which Roger Ackroyd had left behind, he gets £500. He continues to serve Ackroyd family even after Ackroyd had died, and his alibi was when Roger Ackroyd was murdered, he was in the billiard room during the time of Roger's death. Who is Hector Blunt? Another friend of Roger Ackroyd. He is known to be a big game hunter. You know, big game hunter, he used to do hunting, but he's the very blunt kind, doesn't have brain, very stoical, Puritan type. He's a military man, but every person here is hiding some kind of truth. Jeffrey Raymond is hiding that he has debt. Flora Ackroyd is hiding that she has stolen money. Major Hector Blunt is hiding a very innocent truth. Being an old man, he's fallen in love with a young woman, Flora Ackroyd. At the end of the novel, when Ralph Payton is cleared of his of all the convictions, that time Flora Ackroyd decides to get married to a mature man, and they both get engaged. Even during the murder of Roger Ackroyd, he was in the billiard room. Jeffrey Raymond and Major Hector Blunt was in the billiard room during the time of the murder. Now we are coming to another important, he can be taken as a minor character, John Parker. He's a butler. But he plays, I would like to put him under a major character, but I have seen that he has been treated as a minor character, but he plays a major role. During the time when Roger Ackroyd was killed, he was standing outside the door trying to listen to the conversation between Roger Ackroyd and Dr. Shepard. He was trying to listen through the keyhole. Let me tell you one thing. I will give you the construction of the murder later, but first let me tell you, Dr. Shepard is invited to dinner by Roger Ackroyd at 7:30 p.m. Roger Ackroyd is very agitated, so they have dinner. They go to Roger Ackroyd's study room, and Roger Ackroyd reveals to Dr. Shepard that Mrs. Ferrars has been blackmailed by somebody. And this somebody, he doesn't know the name. At this point of time, butler John Parker enters the room with a silver tray where he has letters. These letters are given to Roger Ackroyd. Roger Ackroyd takes the letter and sees one letter has come from Mrs. Ferrars. Parker goes away, closes the door. Mrs. Ferrars' letter he opens. He sees the name and tells Dr. Shepard, I would not like to read the name in front of you. I want to be alone. Let me come to this point till now. Let me now concentrate on Parker. What does Parker does? Parker gives the letter, goes out, but he has a very bad past. The bad past is that he used to work under a person called Major Ellerby. Major Ellerby that time also had some dark secrets. Parker was also blackmailing his former employer, Major Ellerby. Hercule Poirot comes to know this, and he knows that even Parker has a bad past. So here also Parker would have blackmailed Roger Ackroyd, but before he can blackmail, Roger Ackroyd is killed. Mr. Hammond, another important character. Why is he important? Not because he appears very much in the story. It's because he's the lawyer. He gives the major facts which are important for Hercule Poirot. He says that Roger's stepson, Roger did not actually disinherit his son. He left Fernley Park to his stepson, his wagon wheel industry to his stepson. Flora Ackroyd inherited £20,000. Flora's mother inherited £10,000. Roger's secretary received £500, and the rest of Roger's fortune was divided between the domestic staff and charity. Miss Elizabeth Russell is the housekeeper. She also has a dark secret. When Dr. Shepard is invited to dinner, he sees Elizabeth Russell is coming from somewhere panting. She's panting because she has been running from, running from somewhere, and she says, oh, I did not know you were invited for dinner. That was what she tells Dr. Shepard. Then she goes away. She is supposed to be a very dignified lady. Once she had come to Dr. Shepard's clinic also. That time she had come to Dr. Shepard to know about some kind of poison. So when these facts are revealed to Hercule Poirot, people will be thinking Elizabeth Russell can also be instrumental in killing Mrs. Ferrars or Dr. Ashley Ferrars. But actually it's not that. She has a dark past. She has an illegitimate son whose name is Charles Kent, and he was into drugs. For his reason, he had gone to Dr. Shepard's, but she does not give the real reason for going to Dr. Shepard's. Instead, she goes and asks Dr. Shepard's about some information regarding poison and drugs. She is also a member of the Roger Ackroyd family. Ursula Bone she is seen leaving the Roger Ackroyd family when the murder has taken place, because her master Roger Ackroyd has told her to leave. Why has she told her? Why has he told her to leave? Because Ursula Bone, before leaving, tells Roger Ackroyd that she has married his stepson. At that point of time, Ursula Bone was threatened to be thrown out of the house, and she is told to leave because obviously, though she belongs to a respectable Irish family, she's poor. She has to take on this kind of a work because out of poverty. She used to work under Mrs. Folliot. Mrs. Folliot was actually her elder sister, but Mrs. Folliot appears as her employer, her past employment. Her past employment is with Mrs. Folliot. Her next employment is with Roger Ackroyd. There with Roger Ackroyd, she had to leave Roger. She was told to leave because Roger Ackroyd could not tolerate the fact that his stepson, had got married to Ursula Bone. The problem is that on the day of the murder, there are 3 people who are in the summer house. I will go to that later, just after 1 or 2 slides. That she goes to meet Ralph Payton. Ralph Payton, on the day of the murder, he has come to the summer house to meet Ursula Bone because Ursula Bone has called him to come over there. She fights with Ralph Payton and tells him, why have you got engaged to Flora Ackroyd? She also tells that I have spoken to your father and he has rejected our proposal. So when she comes from the summer house and when the Ralph Payton leaves, that time Dr. Shepard has smuggled a boot of Ralph Payton and put marks on the garden so that when the police come, when they see the marks or the boot marks, they will understand it is the boot marks of a young person and they will suspect Ralph Payton. Other characters who are of less importance are Charles Kent. I told you there are 3 set of people who had come to the summer house on the day of the murder. Charles Kent had come that day, on the day of the murder, to meet her mother, which is Elizabeth Russell. That's why Elizabeth Russell, on the day of the murder, she runs and goes and meets Charles Kent and takes a roundabout way to come from the summer house into the house. So she also leaves behind some kind of mark. Next, Miss Payton, she's already dead. When we are introduced in the novel, she's the wife of Roger Ackroyd. Annie is a parlor maid who is working in Shepard's house. Miss Garnett is like anybody else, like Caroline Shepard, spreading gossip. People who are investigating, you have to know their names. Inspector Davis, who is the first person to investigate the murder. Inspector Raglan is the most important person because he goes into conflict with Hercule Poirot. He doesn't like the presence of Hercule Poirot there because he feels he's more intelligent like Hercule Poirot. Colonel Melrose is the chief constable in the village of King's Abbot. Elsie Dale is another housemaid in Roger Ackroyd's family. She doesn't like Ursula Bone and she feels that the 40 pounds which actually Flora had stolen was stolen by Ursula Bone. Colonel Carter, who is a resident of King's Abbot and also a friend of Dr. Shepard. Major Ellerby, the former employer of John Parker. These are the important minor characters who are present. Kent, Payton, Annie, Garnett, the inspectors, the maids, and Major Ellerby. Now, we have to come to a little bit of critical analysis of how Hercule Poirot solves his crime. Hercule Poirot acts like an empiricist. What is an empiricist? That all knowledge is not based on experience. Some are derived from the senses. You know, this empiricism was introduced by John Locke, George Berkeley, David Hume, this kind of a philosophy that you have to depend on your senses. Everything is not theory, everything is not knowledge. So you have, for detection, you need your senses. You have to keep your senses. Like all the time, he is giving some theory, understanding human behavior. Next is, he's a flexible intellect. He's intuitive. Intuition is very important, that the detectives must have. He sees the official enquiry, and if you see the official way of enquiry, they are seeing the boots. They are seeing boot marks. They are saying, oh, boot marks. That means Ralph Payton has murdered his stepfather. But Poirot goes into the detail, where the boot marks are, what kind of boot mark, what time the boot marks were there. Was it the time when he was murdered, or was the boot marks coming after the murder? These kind of things, which you can see is a contrast to the way the official enquiry is going. Official enquiry goes according to certain techniques, and Poirot's handling is according to philosophical interest in human behavior. You have to understand human behavior, Flora's way of acting, Flora's knowledge, Flora's human nature, Cecil Ackroyd's words she's uttering, the way she is expressing herself, the way she's crying, her jittery way of acting is another fact. Poirot does not acquire anything from the Ackroyd family. So he will be giving a dispassionate statement of facts. He will size up all his suspects one by one. He will put his motives. You must have seen Byomkesh also. In Byomkesh Chiriyakhana film, they were seeing that there is a soft board. On the soft board, all the name of the culprits, the picture of the culprits are put, and they are putting either a tick mark or a cross mark. যে এ করতে পারে না এ করতে পারে না, এ করতে পারে না কেন, নাম্বার 1, এ করতে পারে কেন, নাম্বার 2. So accordingly, Poirot also does the same thing. He takes the motives and interest, he sees the time, he matches the times, he matches the motives, he matches the interest, and he sees, matches even personality. Which person is cold-blooded to do this kind of a murder. Then he goes into some premises. That is the most important thing. He sizes up all his suspects, and he says every suspect has one secret or the another. He tries to get the secrets from everybody. When the secrets are out, he will be able to solve the murder. So this is the way in which Christie is showing that the police are sloppy when they are investigating, and Poirot is methodical, investigative, philosophical, intuitive, and also introspective when he is analyzing the crimes. Construction of the murder. This is the important part. Listen carefully, because this is a second last slide, I think, second last or third last slide. Roger Ackroyd invites Dr. Shepard to dinner. Ackroyd has a private in discussion with Dr. Shepard. In the study, he reveals that Mrs. Ferrars actually killed her husband and was being blackmailed for that. When he wants to, and Mrs. Ferrars wanted Roger Ackroyd to take revenge, but how, he doesn't understand. That time Parker comes in. Parker comes in with a plate, with a tray where he has letters. In the letters, there is a letter from late Mrs. Ferrars. Ackroyd opens the letter and is about to, Parker leaves. Parker has left, closes the door. Ackroyd opens the letter, sees the name of Dr. Shepard, tells Dr. Shepard, I do not want to read the name in front of you. Dr. Shepard has always been suspecting this kind of thing, because, you know, a guilty conscience is always there. So what he does, there's a silver table in front of Ackroyd. He pulls the silver table, takes out a dagger, puts the dagger into the neck of Roger Ackroyd. And what he does is that time he sets a dictaphone. Dictaphone is a phone where you can dictate, one second, where you can, it's a small cassette recorder when you can record and put it and set up a certain time. That time he sets a dictaphone and leaves. When he leaves, He tells Parker, Roger Ackroyd does not want to be disturbed. He goes to the summer house. From the summer house, he takes out his bag. He takes the boot of takes the boot of Ralph Payton, makes marks on the garden. From the study window, he goes inside the goes inside the study where Roger Ackroyd is killed, sets the dictaphone, and comes out of the window. So he comes out from Roger Ackroyd's room, goes to the summer house, takes the boot, puts marks on the garden, enters the study room through the window, and then goes out from the window goes out from the window and leaves that place of Roger Ackroyd. Then he goes back home, goes back home, and there is a phone call. In the phone call, he tells his sisters, Caroline Ackroyd, that Roger Ackroyd has been killed. I have received a phone call. He goes back to Roger Ackroyd's house, tell Parker that I have received a phone call in which the Roger Ackroyd has been killed. So Parker says, I have not got any kind of message. Well, you have to break open the door. Parker and Dr. Shepard break open the door, and they see at that time that Roger Ackroyd is killed. When Roger Ackroyd is killed, that time he sets everything. He sees that there is no marks of his on the table. He wipes out all the marks, sees if the dictaphone, takes the dictaphone into his bag, because nobody should see the dictaphone. He has set the dictaphone at 9:30. Why 9:30? Because that time people are reporting. Flora Coed has reported that I have heard my father's, my uncle's voice at 9:30. But actually by 9:30 he had been killed. Roger Ackroyd had been killed at 8:50. But the dictaphone recording goes on at 9:30, where Roger's voice is recorded there. And people think, who are standing outside his study, that Roger must be talking to somebody. So that time Dr. Shepard has left, so no kind of, nobody can blame Dr. Shepard. When they break open the door, nobody can see the dictaphone. He tells Parker, go and telephone the police. When Parker goes to telephone the police, Dr. Shepard puts the dictaphone into the bag and waits for the police to come. Then he leaves the house and tries to assist the police and Hercule Poirot when they are trying to investigate the murder of Roger Ackroyd. So nobody can actually think Dr. Shepard to be the murderer, because he had brilliantly, scientifically planned the murder. Conclusion: Poirot, in the last scene, when everybody has left, when he tells people, this definition you should know, Poirot tells everybody, when all the people are assembled in the drawing room of his house, remember what I said. The truth goes to Inspector Raglan in the morning, but for the sake of your good sister, no, even before he says this to Dr. Shepard, he tells the other people that I am going to report the name of the murderer to Inspector Raglan in the morning. All the people leave. All the people means Raymond, you have Mr. Hammond, then Hector Blanc, Cecil Ackroyd, Flora Ackroyd, everybody leaves the room. Poirot tells Dr. Shepard, you do not leave the room, you stay back, I have something to tell you. He does not tell everybody that Dr. Shepard is the killer, but he tells Dr. Shepard alone, remember what I said, the truth goes to Inspector Raglan in the morning, but the sake for your good sister, I am willing to give you a chance of another way out. And what is the another way out? An overdose of a sleeping draught. So what does Poirot see? Poirot says, either you reveal yourself to the police, but your sister is a very good person. She would not like you to be convicted. So you have another way out. And what is another way out? You have to commit suicide. Dr. Shepard at the end commits suicide with Verona. And he says in the last, and what shall it be? Veronal. That would be kind of poetic justice. He's a very magnificent culprit. So he cannot, go in the hands of the police. He has to be given a very good death. So I have no pity for myself. So let it be Veronal. But I wish Hercule Poirot had never retired from work and come here to grow vegetable marrows. Veronal is a kind of a poison which comes from barbiturate, which is a sodium sulfate. It's used for hypnotism. It can put you to sleep for a long period of time. So an overdose of Veronal, is a doctor also, means that you are dead. So he chooses Veronal. He knows that I do not want to be named the culprit, so it's better to take Veronal. You have even seen in Byomkesh Bokshi that at the last, in all stories, he doesn't hand over the murderer to the police. He says, Ami Shottanneshi, a discoverer of the truth. Ami Shottota peye gele ar ami kichu korbo na. So if I get to know the truth, I will not go into any kind of complications. So Poirot is also like, you can say, Byomkesh Bokshi. He gets to know the truth. He informs the culprit about the truth. He also suggests a way out. Byomkesh would not have done this, but he suggests a way out, that you commit suicide, because that is the only way out. And Dr. Shepard at last decides to commit suicide, because this is the only way where he can die without actually hampering his fame in King's Abbot. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Any
Thank you,
questions?
ma'am.
Wait, now where am I? I can't find myself. Okay, any questions? Aritro, তুমি এটা হ্যান্ডেল করো questions. Time একটু বেশি হয়ে গেছে, sorry অরিত্র.
No ma'am, that's all right. Question আমি একবার ইউটিউবটা চেক করছি যদি ওখানে কিছু কেউ কোয়েশ্চেন করে থাকে।
কোনো বুঝতে অসুবিধা হলে আমাকে জিজ্ঞেস করো, প্লিজ ইউ ক্যান আস্ক মি ইফ ইউ হ্যাভ এনি প্রবলেম।
না ম্যাম, ইউটিউবে কোনো কোয়েশ্চেন নেই, আই গেস।
তোমরা নিজেরা জিজ্ঞেস করতে পারো। তোমরা কি বুঝতে কিভাবে মার্ডারটা হয়েছে? হ্যাভ ইউ আন্ডারস্টুড?
ম্যাম বাট এখানে তানিয়া ধারা একটা কোয়েশ্চেন করেছে চ্যাট বক্সে।
বলো।
Pretty big one. Ma'am, you have mentioned that there was the name of the blackmailer which Roger Ackroyd didn't mention of Dr. Shepard, but there was no such name of the blackmailer when Ackroyd read it silently in front of Dr. Shepard after getting the letter.
No, that is very true. It is an assumption. It is an assumption. When he's telling that I want to read it alone, okay, when I want to read the letter alone, the letter when he's opening, that time it is assumed that the name has been written, and there can be an assumption that either he has read it or not read it. But because Dr. Shepard was in guilt, he did not waste time. He had already, just before, one day before, the dictaphone, he had taken the dictaphone which Roger Ackroyd had purchased to, to adjust it. There were some problems with the dictaphone. He was trying to adjust it. When he had taken it for adjustment, he had adjusted the time as 9:30. Oh, he had already planned the murder. He had come, boots, he had brought a big bag with him. In the bag, there was the boots of Ralph Payton. Okay, Ralph Payton boots were there. And he also bought the dictaphone. And he could not imagine that he was suspecting somebody, that maybe Roger Ackroyd will be telling him something. He was he was not really, he had two options, that either he will murder then or he will take a chance later. But when Parker comes in with the letter, when the letter is, he takes out the letter, it is assumed either he has read the name of the letter or he is going to read the name of the letter in the letter, and that time he tells Dr. Shepherds that I would like to be alone. But before because he has a guilt conscience, he doesn't waste time. He takes the dagger and he stabs him on his neck. ঠিক আছে? আর কেউ? আর কেউ কিছু জিজ্ঞেস করবে? Everybody has understood, or just tell me, have you understood or not?
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, I have a question.
বলো তানিয়া।
My previous question was, you mentioned that it was an assumption, but how did it is an assumption? Because the Roger Ackroyd read the letter in front of Dr. Shepherd silently, and when Dr. Shepherd asked Roger Ackroyd to utter the name, then he mentioned that he wanted to be alone. Then how did you tell that Ackroyd didn't utter the name when there was no such name in the letter, as Christie never mentioned the name of the blackmailer and the reader didn't?
Yes, Mrs. Ferrars had named the blackmailer, and because Dr. Shepherds had been blackmailing Mrs. Ferrars for a long period of time, I told you that even if the name would not have been written, he would have, out of fear, killed Roger Ackroyd. Dr. Shepherds would have killed him. So it is an open-ended letter. It is an open-ended, it has been written there. That is very sure, it has been written there. But whether Roger Ackroyd had read it or will be reading it later, that is not clear in the novel. He just mentions that I would like to be alone. You get it, Tanya? He mentions that I would like to be alone. এই কথাটাই শুধু বলে। সেখানে লেখাটা পড়ে বলছে না লেখাটা না পড়ে বলছে সেটা কিন্তু মেনশন করা হয়নি। বাট ইট হ্যাজ
মেনশন করা আছে ম্যাম।
কি কোথায় মেনশন করা আছে?
নোটিশটা যখন ওপেন করা হয়েছিল তখন ওই লেটারটা রজার অ্যাক্রয়েড পড়েছিল, কিন্তু সেটা ডক্টর
মেনশন করেনি, সেটাই তো বলছি, মেনশন কিন্তু করেনি সেখানে। যে ওখানে তো দ্যাট টাইমই তো আমি বলছি যে বলেছে যে আই উড লাইক টু বি অ্যালোন when I'm reading the letter. এইটাই আমি বলতে চাইছি যে ডক্টর শেপার্ডের টাইমে ও এই লেটারের সামনে নামটা পড়েনি, বাট আউট অফ ফিয়ার, আউট অফ গিল্ট কনসিয়াস, ভয়তে এই খুনটা সে করেছে। এটাই আমার মেইন পয়েন্ট। ঠিক আছে, ওকে? আর কেউ? Have you understood Hercule Poirot's technique, the detection technique? একটু বুঝেছো? When you are writing, I think it's better that you compare him with some of the detective stories that you have read. It would be better that you compare him with some of the detective stories. That would be a comparative analysis, and that would also be that you give some of the detection techniques that that have been employed by the other detectives, and how different is Hercule Poirot when he is investigating. It depends upon the questions. The questions later, we can deal with the questions. আমরা পরে you can mail to me বা কিছু, আমি questions গুলো তোমাদের যারা পড়াচ্ছে তারাও বলতে পারবে, but the questions I think will be catering to a character analysis or the detection technique. These kinds of questions will be coming in your examination, I presume. This type of Roger Ackroyd's character analysis is very important. Detection technique is important. Character analysis of some of the characters, 3 or 4 characters are important. They can take you some kind of, give you some names for character analysis, or they can tell you that Hercule Poirot, analyze the character of Hercule Poirot. How do you see Hercule Poirot? Or Dr. Shepard's character? These kind of probable questions, these kind of questions are quite probable in your examination. So I hope that you have liked my lecture. Thank you very much. অরিত্র, এবার কি আমি এটা অফ করে দিচ্ছি? আর তো কোয়েশ্চেন নেই
না ম্যাম, আর কোয়েশ্চেন নেই।
ঠিক আছে, ওকে, থ্যাংক ইউ দেন অরিত্র। থ্যাংক ইউ, থ্যাংক ইউ,
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.